Hi folks. So here is my new test car. As you can see, it's the P7 Plus. Thanks to Mach Motors, who provide the car for me. Very grateful for that. And this is, by the way, not just any car. This is the performance version. So it's in pretty much everything the most comparable also to my G6. So this is just the video for the first impression. But first things first, please subscribe to my channel. That would be super nice. Thanks so much. That means it's the first one in the series. I start off with my first impressions. Tomorrow I will do the 120-kilometer drive as a live stream and then a video about that. And then we will compare this and this car and see which are the advantages and disadvantages of each. And then on Sunday, I will also do a city drive to give consumption for the city and a final verdict on the car. So today it's just kind of how do I feel with the first contact, so to speak. So let's start off with quality. This is all soft. Here it's hard, and down here it's also hard. We have the things that all the XPengs have, which is of course the internal the big screen. They have here some ambient lighting, these things, but this car also has some things which are special. Let's see whether I can show that. This is, for example, also different from the G9. If you remember, in the G9 the speakers somehow move up when you drive. Here they don't, so we can go back to park. What is very interesting for this car is it's a very different setup, both from the G6 and the G9, mainly because of this here. Can you see that? There we have the head-up display. You will see that better on the video about the drives, but it's just huge, and it's to me it's the best head-up display that I have seen so far in any car. But I have also not driven all kinds of cars, so that is the caveat here. It also has this small display here. It's really tiny, and it does not have all the information on it. For example, the temperature outside you only see here, and for example here you have then the percentages. While driving, you see here also the kilometers that are still available and which mode you have, but you have a lot of information also here in the head-up display. So it's an interesting setup. When I drove the car here, I have to say that I got to like the setup right away, especially the heads-up display. That's really nice. Otherwise, it does not have a glove box. At least I did not manage to open something there. So an update to yesterday. This car, as I always said, it feels like it has a glove box. One just has to find it. There are two ways to open it. One is here, pressing, and then it opens. The other one is you can set an icon here in the list. You know how that works. You press here, and then you can select stuff that you move into the menu. And if you press here, it opens. So I was just not clever enough yesterday to find the solution. What I could expect not to do is to open it with a voice command. I can show you this.
Hi there.
Please open Glovebox.
XPeng doesn't know how it works.
And it says XPeng doesn't know how it works. So that seems not to be included. And it has the typical setup for XPengs. The menus are very similar, but of course they're always a little bit different depending on what the car offers. So here, for example, you have something. Let me see whether I find that. So from here again. So the setup of the screen is very similar for all XPengs, as we know. But here you can just set up some things like, for example, the rear control screen, which I will show you later. And of course the head-up display, logically for the other cars not available. And here you can also lock the rear screen if you don't want to have your children play around with it, which makes sense if you see what you can do with that screen when we come to the back seat. Otherwise, it's all very similar. So also when it comes to driving, we have the typical setup. Nothing really surprising here. We have snow, wet, slip start mode if you need that. All the typical things. So I would say from the first impression I had from the menus, it's in no way surprising. It's how we know it. It's also the steering wheel, like in the other XPengs, is manually adjustable. The seats are as adjustable as in all the XPengs. It also has, of course, here massage options, as you can see. The difference is it has that also for the back seats. So that is even better than in the G9. So it has ventilated, heated, and massage for the back seats. It has also some other cool features on the back seats. Otherwise, here the opening that's very similar to other cars from XPeng, and here we also see it has some storage, but the storage is less. Also here it's smaller than in other cars. That's because it's a limousine. In terms of size, for me, the seat is now set up exactly for my size. I drove it like this. We will then see how much space is behind me. I still have like more than a fist space to the ceiling, and I'm 192. So that's pretty impressive, I would say. Let's have a look at the back seats. Yes. So one can see from the first view that it has plenty of space, which it better does because it is a whopping 5 meters and 8 centimeters. That is huge. So, and here I have more than enough space for my legs. There's like one fist still in front. It's a bit narrow under the seats because, well, it's a limousine, it's a sedan. It's a very nice interior. What you can do is, for example, you can recline your seats by quite some margin electrically. That is super nice. It has the same distribution as typical for XPeng, which is a 60-40, and the 60 is for me always on the wrong side. That's also in my car. I would prefer it to be that these two are connected and this one is a single, but that's how it is. This one here has at the executive seat a special function, which is a table. For me, with my long legs, a little bit low. I would need it maybe a little bit higher, but in general, that's a very sturdy one. You can really work with that very well. It has, like all XPengs, the G9, the G6, and this one have the sleep function. where you just press the buttons. I will show you that in a second how that looks, but I will not do it because you have to take off the headrests and that stuff. And then it moves into either a one-person sleeping position, which is just here, so you should not be too long, or you can just sleep, of course, also in the trunk. That's it for the back seat. You have here hooks on both sides for, yeah, suits, jackets, holders, and you have also the light. And the interesting thing is this here. So you have, like in a Tesla, you have the small screen in the back where you can do lots of things. Of course, you can do something about the air conditioning and stuff, but you can also decide here, I want to ventilate the seats or I want to heat them. And that's why you need to have a child lock. You can also move the seats here for the passenger seat. You can decide, for example, if they have it like this and you don't like that, you can move it up. It's only for the passenger seat at least. And you can also move the seat forward. So this is clearly a function for the situation that you have a driver and you are the executive on this position and you want to have your space the way you would like to have it. And then you also have the massage function on both sides, and you can decide which massage you want to have and with which intensity. What you do not have here, in contrast to the front, is, of course, you don't have here the voice control. That would work from the front, because in the front, for example, I never use any menu. I just tell the car to start my massage and then it does that. The seating here in the back is amazing. I have to say that. If you look here, I have still one fist above my head, and as I say, 192. If I sit, for example, in a BMW in the back, I cannot really extend my head, and that was in an i5. So I have honestly never sat in a middle class sedan with that much space. This is, the size is S-Class level, I would say. Of course, not the seats or something. What is missing, for example, here are the leg rests, which they have in the G9. That's something that would have been good also as an executive, because especially if you want to, just relax but not change everything to a sleeping position, that would be really nice. Let's have a look into the trunk, because one thing it does not have is a frunk. I really don't understand why the G9 has it, and I think the L03 will also have it, but the G6 and the P7 Plus don't. They have plenty of space for that. So this is really nice. This is a super nice opening and also very high, but this is also 100%. You can of course adjust that. The seats, if you want to drop the seats, you have to do it manually. It's not like, for example, in the Model Y, where you have here some buttons to do it. And you have hooks here, which I still miss in my car. You have here a strap to hold something. You have a quite big sub-trunk. And this is really, really huge, especially in this position, which is now the maximum position. You have to consider what I showed you in terms of space on the back seat. That's under these conditions. So that's the minimal space you have. And behind me, that's also the minimal space. I doubt that anybody sits further back than I do with my extremely long legs. So this is really, really nice. It's, of course, here it's not that high. So you will, in the end, I show you a video I did on the luggage which you can put in, because I have this standard set of luggage with which I try different cars. It fits in here better than in others. But of course, you cannot, for example, put something high here because here it's already fairly low. But still, it's a huge trunk and very easily accessible, which also means if you want to sleep in here, that's also really nice. You have a lot of space. You just need the right mattress for it. But it's definitely a car where you can do that easily. And then maybe let me tell you also a little bit about my first impression of driving. I was driving it now about 20 kilometers from the dealership home, and the consumption, I will show you a photo of that. The consumption was 13.9 kilowatt hours on 100. And to put that into kind of a perspective, this is a difference of about 100 meters of height up from the dealership to me. And it's a drive on which, for example, my Model 3 would not have managed this kind of consumption. It would have been more in the range of 150, 155. So at least it seems to be that in the city, this car is very, very efficient. Also, when you look at 93%, 519 kilometers, and when it was 99%, it showed 558 kilometers. That is huge for such a comparatively small battery of just 75 kilowatt hours, which is probably because it's an LFP. And as we know, for example, in a Tesla, which is a lot shorter, if you have in a Tesla an LFP, it only has 60 kilowatt. So they are just not as dense as the NMC, so you cannot fit in that much, like for example this huge battery you have in an i3, yeah, or then i5 will have an even bigger one. I think it will have something crazy, what, 128 or so, I don't know. Some last thing about driving, this one has adaptive dampers, so it does not have the same suspension as a G6, nor does it have the air suspension of the G9. But I have to say it was really, really comfortable to drive. And of course, when you just drive, you don't feel the length. The length is something that, yeah, I will check out. I will probably take it to the fitness center and then see how one can park, because there, I guess that parking would not be that easy if it's that long, because the boxes are normally not, that huge. So the length is something that would worry me in daily life, but only for parking, for garage and these kind of things. While driving, you don't feel it. The driving is very comfortable. And you also have what the G9 did not have. You have here the digital mirror. Very nice. Yeah, so folks, that's it for a first impression video. I have to say it's in many ways, of course, very similar to the G6, or in certain ways the G9. It's like it seems to always be with XPengs. None of the cars is totally perfect. Some have glove boxes, some don't. Some have head-up displays, some don't. So you always have to make a decision. It's always a kind of a payoff. But in general, the first impression is very positive about this car, I have to say. I like it, and I also really like to drive it. So let's see how the 120 kilometer comparison, so let's see how the 120 kilometer test tomorrow will go and what the results will be. I expect it to be substantially more efficient than the G6 because it has a very different shape. Let's see. See you then, folks. Bye bye.